It's all, for me, about success by smallness, about grasping the little opportunities every day, and importantly, showing up, especially on those bad days. Because if you just show up consistently and grasp every little opportunity that you can, eventually you will get that moment of magic, that twist of luck like I did that changes everything. But you have to keep showing up, and you have to trust that the smallest things really do make the biggest difference. So, I know I don't look like it right now, but I am a mountaineer. I've spent most of my 20s living and climbing in some of the world's most extreme environments, and as a woman, often the only female on the team going to the top of some of the highest peaks on the planet.
Climbing big mountains is dealing with constant change and constant uncertainty. A lot of the time, in the mountains, we're dealing with adverse weather, with avalanches, with so many things that can go wrong. We're often climbing through fog and mist. We can't see the path ahead. We know where we'd like to end up on the summit, but we don't know how necessarily we're going to get there. But once in a while, the fog clears and you can see where you are. And you get those moments where you're like, aha, we're on the right path. And I feel like perhaps your journey might feel a little bit like that too. Climbing through fog and once in a while getting that clear view and thinking we're on the right track.
On the 17th of May 2010, I fell to my knees on the summit of Mount Everest, and I became one of the youngest people ever to climb the world's highest peak. I was 22 years old. But what made that all the more interesting than just my age was the fact that only 2 years before that, when I was 20, I had never climbed a mountain before.
You know what? I can spend the rest of my life thinking people like me can't do stuff like that. Or I can just actually go and find out. And why not just start today? Even the smallest action is better than months more of procrastination.
I thought, someone like me, Bonnie from Wokingham, we don't climb mountains like Everest. You have to be superhuman to do something like that, right? And so those limiting beliefs about who I was and where I'd come from just pushed that dream to the back of my mind. But it doesn't go away, does it, the dream?
So I was less than a beginner. I didn't even have the basics. So there were a lot of jokes and laughs at my expense when I would say to people, yeah, I'm going to climb Everest. People would say, really, you? You can't even put your helmet on the right way round. Well, I was a beginner, right? And I think you've got to suck at things in the beginning. You just have to get into that discomfort and go with it. Every weekend I told myself, if I can just go out and climb 1 meter higher, then it doesn't matter about all the mistakes I make. That is still progress.
I couldn't keep up with my teammates. I felt so overwhelmed constantly, and I just feel like I didn't belong there. And one day, as we were climbing up the mountain face, the summit was disappearing into the heavens. The sun was beating down on the ice, reflecting back on my face. I felt like I was in an oven, and I did not have the ability to take another step. And I said to my teammates, I can't do this anymore. And instead of gathering around me and saying, yes, Bonita, you are really slowing us down, they gathered around me and said, Bonita, we've all been there. We know how it feels to be on our first expedition. Just trust us when we say, you've got to focus on what you can do and stop fretting about what you can't change.
Trust that those little actions will add up and make the biggest difference in the end. When we stepped off this peak, my teammates invited me onto their Everest expedition officially. They said, Bon, we'd love you to come with us. Each place on the trip, though, is going to cost about £50,000, and we're going in 6 months. Are you in? I'm glad you had that reaction, because my heart just sunk. £50,000 in 6 months? Impossible. But the words that came out of my mouth in that moment were, yeah, I'm in. It's just the biggest lie. But as Richard Branson once said, sometimes you do just have to say yes and then go away and work out how to deliver.
We want to give you every penny that you need to go and climb your mountain, as long as the next time you're in the national press, you mention Vocalink. And I thought, I will tattoo that on my forehead if you give me the money.
My bank balance, just moments before paying them, read £50,012. think it goes to show that, you know, it doesn't matter when you start or where you start, you just have to start. I arrived at Everest Base Camp 5,300 meters, and I just, despite being so exhausted about the journey just to get this far, I thought I was the luckiest person in the world, because truly I never thought I'd see this mountain with my own eyes. I couldn't believe I had made it to the bottom of Mount Everest. But
I was just getting major imposter syndrome. Under all of this equipment, my mind was screaming at me, what am I doing here? I'm just Bonnie from Wokingham. Greater mountaineers than me have died on this final stretch in the death zone. Who do I think I am? The only thing that got me out of the tent that night was recognizing that I was fretting about things that I couldn't change, and I actually just had to focus on something that I could do. It was that mantra once more of focus, not fret. So
I'm going to give the mountain my life at the beginning. I hope I get it back at the end. But there's no guarantee. And there is no bigger risk in life that you can take than putting your life on the line for something.
when you focus on the process, the progress looks after itself. All I had done, and I think all you ever have to do, no matter what the challenge is focus on the small things and do the small things well. Success by smallness.
I then realised I could lift my gaze and see my prize, the curvature of the earth. I looked up to see that we were in a big cloud and there was no view. And my hypoxic, oxygen-starved brain was like, this is just like Wales, where I'd done all my training.
But the moment that really topped all of this off was the Sherpa that crawled onto the summit. He took off his oxygen mask, he took out a cigarette, and he began to smoke. Honestly, they call it Sherpa oxygen. Like, he fully deserved that cigarette. The Sherpas are the backbone of Everest, but really, I felt like, you know, I'm there on top of the world, and he's going, done it 10 times, love. Like, no big deal. They really put everything we achieve into perspective.
Be great, make others great. And I think that's exactly what my team did for me. They mentored me from the beginning. They picked me up when I most needed it. They taught me so many skills. And now, today, the words that they taught me come out of my mouth when I'm teaching others in the mountains. Be great, make others great. That's what a great team does.
And that was it. 2 years of my life for just those few moments on the summit. Then it was time for our 3-day descent back to base camp.
In life, I believe when you're dealing with lots of uncertainty, stay curious, stay really open-minded for your team, for your goals, whatever it is, and about yourself. And more importantly, take those big risks. You have to risk things to get big rewards. And finally, focus, not fret. It's the little things when you're dealing with uncertainty that can often ground you and keep you going. When you're not sure, when the fog will clear, just keep taking those small steps. You will get there eventually.